we are going to discuss Peter KIHINGO MUSABI, one of the rarest people you'd ever come across. He's very unique. We have discussed people like Wakinyonga, Washushu, Wanugu. You can see these are criminals who were bank robbers, people who used robbery and violence. But it is very hard to find somebody as unique as Peter MUSABI KIHINGO. Peter MUSABI KIHINGO, as of now, he is a person living with disability. One of his legs is shorter because of a police bullet. But if you look at his CV, before that incident happened, Peter KIHINGO MUSABI was a martial artist with a black belt. Right now, as we speak, he is a born-again Christian who holds several crusades. I've attended one of them. He has two ministries. One of them is very important, rehabilitating former prisoners. His story is very unique, and I would request you to be patient and listen. I studied him twice. While attending my inspectorate course, we studied him as a criminal. A few years later, when I was attending District Security Intelligence Officers course, we studied him as a spy, as a foreign spy who was sent by another country to spy on another country. I'll also come to that. I personally met him in Muriro Garden in Webuye. And even though I was no longer in the intelligence, but they say that you can take a villager from the village, but you cannot take a villageship from him. So you can take me out of intelligence, but at every time, wherever I am, I know I am an intelligence officer. So I have to do some intelligence. That time I went and listened to his crusade. He made a lot of references on the fact that about his life. And he said that he had been convicted on spying for another country. He just made that small statement and left it at that. Now, we have tribes which are at the boundary of different countries. We have Maasais, Somalis, Kuria, and so on. So he was born of a Kenyan Kuria parents. He went to school in Kenya and completed school in Kenya. After completing school, he crossed over to Tanzania and joined the Tanzania People's Defense Forces. He was lucky when he joined Tanzania People's Defense Forces. He was trained to be a tank driver. He was trained to be a tank driver. And then the Tanzanian People's Defense Forces, those days, they were not on good terms with Kenya. So he was instructed by Tanzania People Defense Forces to come to Kenya. By then, the two counties of Migori and Homa Bay were one district called South Nyanza. So he came, lined up, joined the Kenya Army, and went to LANDO to train. In Kenya, it is a criminal offense for you to join a foreign army, a foreign military. You are supposed to seek for permission, a written permission, from the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So he joined the Tanzanian forces without informing, and the Tanzanian People's Defense Forces sent him to Kenya specifically. And those of you who have studied intelligence, these are people whom we call sleepers. Sleepers comes from the word kulala, wanaolala. These are agents who enter your country, lie low, that is sleep, until when they are told to take action. He came, lined up in South Nyanza district. He was employed in the by then it was called Armed Forces. He went to LANDO, completed the basic military course, and then he was also identified and went to, I think it is Isiolo, where there is school of tank school or something. He went and was trained in driving Kenyan tanks. The purpose of driving these Kenyan tanks, I mean, he was, I don't know whether he was lucky. I don't know whether, you know, mfuko. Maybe the Tanzanian People Defense Forces were sending him money to be recruited and also to find himself being trained as a Kenya military tank driver. After he was trained as a military tank driver, his position was that he monitors, he somehow finds information going to Tanzania that the type of military tanks Kenya Army is using is this and this and that, and all that, the plan, the everything, so that somebody in Dar es Salaam knows what type of tanks Kenya has. But you know, intelligence world is a funny world. We are always on the lookout. He was sent by Tanzania People's Defense Force to come and do such a thing in Kenya. But you see, we also had our people. Now, this was the work of MIC. MIC by then used to be called Military Intelligence Corps, but nowadays it is called DMI, Directorate of Military Intelligence. Now, as the Tanzanians were spying on the Kenya Army was also spying on the Tanzanian Army. And somehow, the military intelligence, the Kenyan military intelligence, had an hint that there is somebody called Peter KIHINGO MUSABI who was purposely sent to Kenya for that. Now, the intelligence officer, the Tanzanian intelligence officer, who was handling Peter Musembi, KIHINGO, had been bought by the Kenya Army, and he was giving the information. Where did Peter KIHINGO MUSABI mess? There was an occasion when the president visited Isiolo, and the person to be given authority to go and take the president aside, say, mtukufu rais, hii ndio vikosi vyetu, hivi ndio tuko nazo, hivi na whatever, was none other than him. And you know, as the president, in his capacity as a commander-in-chief, was walking around, the people who were in charge of military intelligence from DOD were there. So they say, unasema jina yako nani? Peter KIHINGO MUSABI. Hey, you know, you act naturally. So they went back to DOD, and the man was arrested and jailed for the offense of treason. He was spying on Kenya on behalf of other countries. Now, hiyo ndio nusu ya story. And the second part is this. When he was arrested, alikuja sasa kutumia hizo vituko vyake. There's a day he was taken to High Court. Nowadays, I think it is court of the Supreme Court within the CBD. And you see, he was being taken from the lorry Mariam into the underground cells. The askaris who were armed and escorting them into the cells were Kenya prison. And this is a person who has trained with the Tanzanian army. This is somebody who has trained with the Kenya Armed Forces, which today is called Kenya Defense Forces. So he looked at this askari, he knew there is an arc. That is, if the gun is pointing down and you see a commotion on your left, as you turn the gun towards that place, there is a curve that does that, and then there is the expected calculation. I don't know how I can put it to the civilians, but you know, it is calculated that such a way, it's like shooting a moving target. You don't shoot at a moving target where it is. You estimate that if I'm shooting at this running swara, by the time the bullet hits it, it will have moved maybe 20 meters. And so you shoot 20 meters ahead of where wakutane huko. So that is how he calculated. And using his karate skills, he snatched a gun from a prison warder. Before anybody could do anything, he has jumped, he's on Tarifa Road, he has hijacked a vehicle, he has gone that way. Peter KIHINGO MUSABI went on a lot of criminal activities. He later was caught and shot. Imagine, he had been shot, but the government did not believe him because he could bypass so many roadblocks and whatever. So at committee, maximum prison, he was placed in a solitary cell, but he had a broken leg. Remember I told you that his leg was short. One of his legs is shorter. They did not even believe him in that with a cast and anything. They had placed him, wamefunga hii mguu pingu pande, hii mguu ingine pingu, 4 pingus on one person. And as I was there, there was a prisoner. You know, you clean your own cells, but he could not clean his own cells because he had a broken leg and he had been tied. So one day they brought a certain prisoner who, they brought a prisoner who was to wipe, alikuwa na kitambaa na anapanguza hiyo cell, na akapanguza cell, akapanguza, akamaliza. But wakati alikuwa anapanguza, there were about 6 armed prison guards. Unajua, hata kwa hiyo condition alikuwa nobody could trust him. So this prisoner, as he was wiping the place, akaanza kuimba, nina imani katika roho ya Yesu na nina furaha. Then he started laughing. Said, committee, maximum, na unasema una furaha. Then this fellow told him, ukipiga magoti na uokoke, utaniacha, hakika utaniacha katika hii jela. But you see, he could not do that. Then this prisoner started praying. All these askaris closed their eyes, they prayed. And that is the day when Peter KIHINGO MUSABI got saved. It was around this time, around the time when he was arrested, that the president, Daniel Arap Moi, said, ukipata hiyo mtu, piga risasi, hapana acha yesi. such things. And then he was arrested and he went to jail, and as I was saying, then he went and appealed. He knew that he was as guilty as hell, because one of the charges was armed robbery, snatching a gun from an armed warder. But this other prisoner used to come and pray for him and said anything, and they prayed that God should open up the judges so that Peter KIHINGO MUSABI can be released and go out and spread word of God. Then one thing, he did not even believe when one day he went to court. He was arguing for the sake of arguing, and the court decided that there were no enough evidence, and he was released. When he was released, he started a prisons out for this formation, a ministry. As I started, I said he had two ministries. One, the normal church, and the second one is rehabilitating convicted robbers. Not just these ordinary prisoners, but convicted robbers. So one day they formed this ministry and visited the president at State House, President Moi. And as they visited President Moi, he encouraged them and said that it is good that they have targeted former criminals whom they were converting, especially robbers. And then when they were seated there, he was seated next to the president, and he whispered to the president and said, "Do you remember a certain former army person who stole a gun from a prison warder, and you said, Ogibata who are ye?" President, "I remember very well." Said, "You are seated next to him, it is me." And you could see the way President Moi was shocked. That, in short, is the history, or is it in long? That is in long, history of Peter MUSABI KIHINGO. But when you attend his crusade, I want to assure you that he's reformed. From my heart, I believe he's a reformed prisoner. Thank you.